Hello! So let's continue with the next article from the GitHub docs. The article is named Triggering a Workflow, and it's quite, there's quite a lot of content to be read, so let's just pick part of it and discuss how can this be used by us. So how to automatically trigger GitHub action workflows. About workflows triggers, so the events that will trigger a workflow. Workflow triggers are events that cause a workflow to run. These events can be events that occur in your workflows repository, so something that happens in a repository, events that occur outside of GitHub, and that trigger a repository dispatch event on GitHub. That I'm not sure if I understand. But if we would have a webhook or something like that, we could trigger a workflow from outside of our GitHub trigger, and trigger a repository dispatch event on GitHub. Okay, scheduled times. So yeah, we can provide us a cron schedule time and a manual trigger. Okay. So those four, the inside events, the outside events, the scheduled events, and manual trigger. For example, you can configure your workflow to run when a push is made to the default branch of your repository, when a release is created, and when an issue is opened. Okay. Workflow triggers are defined with the on key. For more information, see workflow syntax on GitHub Actions. Okay. The following steps occur to trigger a workflow run. An event occurs on your repository. The event has an associated The event has an associated commit SHA and git ref. Bravo. Okay. GitHub searches the GitHub workflows directory in the root of your repository for workflow files that are present in the associated commit SHA or git ref of the event. A workflow run is triggered for any workflows that have on values that match the triggering event. Some events also require the workflow file to be present on the default branch of the repository in order to run. Okay, so we need to remember that there's a git ref and a SHA commit that each event has. Then we have our on definition, which will be compared with the event. I don't know if I can call it name, rather event type, and then eventually the workflow will be triggered. Each workflow run will use the version of the workflow that is present in the associated commit SHA or git ref of the event. When a workflow runs, GitHub sets a GitHub SHA, commit SHA, or GitHub ref, git ref environment variables in the runner environment. Okay, so we know a bit more about environments. We read it previously. Triggering a workflow from a workflow. When you use repository's GitHub token to perform tasks, events triggered by the GitHub token, with the exception of workflow dispatch and repository dispatch, will not create a new workflow run. This prevents you from accidentally creating recursive workflow runs. For example, if a workflow run pushes code using the repository GitHub token, a new workflow will not run even when the repository contains a workflow configured to run when push event occurs. Okay, so we have some security measures to not run workflows recursively, which is a very good idea, because we would generate an infinite amount of costs when running and using infinite amount of computer resource and time. If you do want to trigger a workflow from within a workflow run, you can use GitHub app installation access token or a personal access token instead of GitHub token to trigger events that require a token. So yeah, that's something advanced. We can install a GitHub app to create tokens and perform personal access tokens to trigger different workflows. If you use a GitHub app, you need to create a GitHub app and store the app ID and a private key as a secret. For more information, see making authenticated API requests with a GitHub app. Okay, if you use a personal access token, you will need to create a personal access token and store it as a secret. Okay, so again, how to manage our personal tokens. For more information, using secret in GitHub Actions. So we have all the information that we need to know linked in this paragraph. To minimize your GitHub Actions usage cost, ensure that you don't create recursive or unintended workflow runs. For example, the following workflow uses a personal access token stored as a secret called myToken to add a label to an issue via GitHub CLI. Any workflow that runs when a label is added will run once this step is performed. So we have our on issue. Type open. So an open issue will run a job label issue that will run on Ubuntu latest, and the steps we have here are environment variables which are defined on steps level. They are not global over here, but they are only available in this step. So we have our GitHub token as a secret and an issue URL. Sorry for that. And our issue URL is from our GitHub context of the events. And we will run GitHub issue edit issue URL triage. So this is our GitHub command that will run when we open an issue to edit and add a label triage. Okay. Conversely, the following workflow uses GitHub token to add a label to an issue. It will not trigger any workflow that run when a label is added. Okay. So it's the same, right? Yeah, it's the same. And it is secure because it will not run. It will not run when we add a label to GitHub issue. Okay, using events to trigger our workflows. Use the on key to specify what events trigger your workflow. For more information about events, you can use events as trigger workflow. So we have a list of events that we can use. For example, a workflow with the following on value will run when a push is made on a branch. So we already know that's on push. To use a multiple events, we can add an array. It's late, too late. Okay, we can add an array of events to our on key keywords, or should I say keywords? Our on events definition. What would be the correct name? Anyway, we can provide an array of events that will trigger the workflow. Okay, let's move forward. You can use activity types and filters to further control when your workflow will run. For more information, using activity types and using filters. If you specify activity types or filters for an event and your workflow triggers on multiple events, you must configure each event separately. You must append a colon to all events, including events without configuration. Okay. Sorry for that. For example, a workflow with the following on value will run when a label is created. So we already seen that in the previous example. So label type created, push is made to the main branch. So we have a push and we have configured a branches. So this will be a main branch. A push is made to a GitHub pages enabled branch. So we have a page build event. Okay. So let's just go through the activity types and we will discuss the filters later. Some events have activity types that give you more control over when your workflow should run. Use on event name types to define the type of event activity that will trigger a workflow run. So, for example, the issue comment event has created, edited, and deleted activity types. If your workflow triggers on label event, it will run whenever a label is created, edited, or deleted. If you specify the created activity type for the label event, your workflow will run when a label is created, but not when a label is edited or deleted. So we've seen that previously. So we have our event label, and we can can provide activity type. So this is the second step, or the second or the sub property of an event is an activity type, is called activity type, and we have to configure it to be created. If you specify multiple activity types, only one of those events activity types needs to occur to trigger your workflow. If multiple triggering event activity types for your workflow occur at the same time, multiple workflows run will be triggered. Okay. For example, the following workflow triggers when an issue is opened or labeled. If an issue with two labels is opened, 3 workflows runs will start, 1 for the issue opened event and 2 for the 2 issue labeled events. Oh, that's quite interesting. I would expect a different behavior here. I would expect that only one of these should trigger a single workflow, but yeah, it's good to read the docs because it seems like it works differently than what I would expect. So this would trigger at least 2 workflows when we open a labeled issue, and if we have multiple labels, that will trigger more workflow. Okay, yeah, I believe that's enough for today. So we have our on definition that defines our event which will trigger a workflow, and we have activity types, and we can provide multiple activity types, and each condition or match for the activity will trigger a single workflow for this type of activity. So we can trigger multiple workflows single or multiple activity types. Yeah, so we trigger a single workflow per one match of the activity type. I guess that will be the correct way to say it. Was there anything more? Not so much. We can also define multiple events that will trigger the same workflow. Okay, so that will be all for today, and in the next video we will try to discuss the filters. So thank you for stopping by, and we'll read the using filters in the next video. See you over there. Bye.